To start with the first question, as Ben was also saying, a very interesting presentation, Ben, thank you very much. The situation in each country is very different, and here we would like to understand what do you see from the different regions. What do you think, I mean, which region do you think is struggling more with the current restrictions due to the corona contingency out of different products to transport? Which one are more affected? This is a question for everyone, so there you have 5 minutes.
Okay, who starts, Karin?
Starts action for sorry.
You want me to start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, well, yes, definitely developing economies face higher risk, in my opinion. I think for sure Africa, so South Asia, and no lesser extent Latin America. Because we have much lower health system capacity, more exposed to the world trade cycle because their goods and services are highly dependent, advanced economies demand, and thus more vulnerable, to the crisis, and far less access to internet. Well, a lot of things can been here in Latin America, for example, Mexico. To have a short answers, we specialize in fresh fruits, and definitely in these 8 weeks, the exports have been less. Talking about numbers for us is more or less 30% less. Speaking with melon, lemon from United States, and mango for Europe, practically we are off, and we are waiting somehow this reactivation. That's in my case.
We can solve probably that, and we move to Chef.
Well, in our opinion, we think Latin America will be hit very badly. Mainly our view on this is because of the lack of GDP percentage-wise investments from the local governments to counter the effects of the crisis. What you are seeing is that a lot of governments, well, especially Mexico being a large one, governments is taking no actions whatsoever to actually counter the V curve, which is happening actually after each crisis. So where we have a strong downwards trend, and afterwards a very quick ramping up. And the best way to constrain this is, of course, by more governmental help. We have seen this in the last crisis with Japan. Anyway, on top of that, of course, Latin America is heavily depending on tourism, and Mexico specifically is heavily depending on the trade with the US. Of course, the trade in the US is in slowdown. This will lead to reductions for trade with Mexico. Tourism goes down. The whole trade via the Panama Canal is being affected. So yeah, generally, if you ask me which flows are going to be affected, well, we see also the food chain in the US. We have, there was an interesting podcast of one of the guys in this is from where we saw that the immigrants, of course, who help in getting all the products of the fields, well, obviously that is down, so there will be less supply. And that could, of course, also cause, that products are not widely available anymore. So cargo streams, which are currently affected, that was part of the question, is high volume with high volume trading goods with small margins in the import side. Why have they been affected? Because of the exchange rate, so it's become too expensive to sell them. The raw materials from Europe to Mexico have been affected. So Mexico heavily depends on car exports, around 4 million cars a year. So that will be quite affected. And worldwide, what we still have to see here, but we already see in the US, well, actually, we saw it in Europe. When I left Europe on the 6th of March, we saw already that there was an equipment shortage for export. So we cannot get the export out, even though there is demand, because of the lack of equipment from China. This will happen, of course, with a delay also at this side of the world. We already see it in the US. There is not enough empty equipment to get the exports out. Mexico, it's still, so it's a little bit okay, but of course, we also will be hit with that because most of the the voyages are connected with the US. So yeah, we expect that to happen more or less at the end of April, beginning of May. So that would be my answer, which is more or less also in line with what Anna had to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Chef. Let's try with Enrique. I think now you are okay, Enrique?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect, clear.
Thank you. Sorry to everyone, and hi again. Well, about our perception, until now we've seen a struggling more Europe region than any other, and in supply chain industry is not an exemption in this contingency. Even that logistics and transport activities have been considered as essential businesses, but it is applied mainly those focused in food and medical supplies or equipment. So for all other commodities or businesses not considered as essential or not going on normal operation, our industry has been affected too. As Moody's mentioned in a report last week, the shipping sector is dependent on world trade and activity demand for goods from industrial companies as well as consumers. Regarding transport costs, as Ben mentioned previously, and also applies to Europe region, the rates to Europe are between 2 times to 4 times higher than normal, as the industry are dealing with the swift suspensions of almost all passengers' schedules, and well, several air shipments are loaded in these passenger flights. And this is the situation today in Europe as we see it, or as I said, as our perception. But also events are occurring every day and information is changing practically every hour. Here in the Americas, we are just starting, just to see the consequences of COVID contingency. Therefore, there's still uncertainty in our region of how it will be affected. Regarding our products, we handle mainly automotive parts, for example, electric engines for trains, concrete, construction materials, measurement equipment. Our perception is that shipments or projects are on hold mainly due to speculations or uncertainty of the current situation, as not all factories from our clients have not stopped in total their operations. They're still moving some products or commodities, doing some shipments in a lower level, obviously, with all the cautions and restrictions due to this emergency. That's our perception as Boyke Logistics.